Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we dive into two real-time tech solutions to help you both during and after COVID-19. We'll hear about a social distancing solution to help you protect your customers and employees. We'll also hear about a solution to help you meet customer demand. I'm Hallie Morrissey. I run business development at XRC Labs, and I'll be moderating the session today. I have the pleasure of managing our corporate partnerships. Many of you are on the line. Thank you so much for dialing in. It's also our pleasure to partner with NACDS on this session. Steve Perlowski, VP of Industry Affairs and Member Relations, joins us from NACDS. And on the XRC Lab side, we have Pathr Anthos, founder and managing director of XRC, a retail and consumer goods accelerator based here in New York. For those of you who are newer to who we are, XRC Labs is an innovation accelerator for the next generation of disruptors in the retail and CPG space. We run two programs each year that bring together entrepreneurs, investors, and corporate brands and retailers to foster rapid innovation in retail and CPG. We have 9 corporate partners, retailers like CVS and Lowe's, as well as service providers like MasterCard and Intel. All of our corporate partners rely on us to be predictive, truthful, and connected. Predictive means access to early stage startups. Truthful means thought leadership. And connected means access not only to startups, but to peer corporate partners, trade, and Wall Street. As investors, we fund early stage companies across the retail and consumer goods landscape. Over the last 4 years, we've invested in 80 companies, from consumer brands to solutions in next-gen commerce, supply chain, on-demand manufacturing, e-com, and the consumerization of healthcare. Within the consumer goods space, our breadth of investments is wide. These are just a taste of the consumer brands we invest in, from prebiotic waters to men's corrective cosmetics to superfood dog kibble and skincare for the gaming community. On the supply chain side, we've also invested across the board, from autonomous drones to labor optimization, spatial intelligence, and product information management. Before I pass the mic to Steve and Pathr, I'd like to encourage everyone to submit questions through the Zoom Q&A function. We'll be having a Q&A session at the end. And without further delay, Steve, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Hallie, for the introduction. We at NACDS are amazed and energized every day by the heroic efforts of our industry, our stores and associates, their management, and their supplier communities, both the products and people, all of whom are working tirelessly to provide comfort and assistance to Americans at a time of great need. At NACDS, we view our role in all of this in a couple of different ways. First, to work with the administration and all levels of the government to allow our pharmacists to practice their profession at the level of their degree, to provide timely and relevant information to our members on rapidly changing local, state, and federal laws, guidelines, and regulations, and to serve as storytellers and advocates for our industry. So far this week, we passed and the governor signed a law in Virginia that furthers the role of the pharmacist to serve patients, and an ad that we created to tell the story of pharmacy and pharmacists over the past 100 years has become a public service announcement that will run this week on both CNN and Fox News. We have accomplished quite a bit in a very short period of time. We also know that product availability is a challenge, and we created a product directory based on goods sold by our associate members to help our retailers find new sources of merchandise. We have also have been working with thought leaders to help our member companies, both retailers and suppliers, evaluate their supply chains, encourage greater visibility and communication between our trading partners, understand changing consumer behavior and emerging practices. We also know that the future depends on innovation, whether it is a new, faster, less invasive COVID-19 test, a vaccine, a way to monitor infected populations, or to leverage robotics and to monitor and fill shelves, or to maintain social distancing, or to simplify the addition of a new item into a retailer's product database. Innovation will be the enabler. Which brings us to today's webinar. NACDS and XRC have been partners for a number of years, bringing innovative companies and thought leadership to our meetings and conferences. We got together about 2 weeks ago and discussed a couple of XRC startups and what they might be able to share with our industry, and decided to push ahead and to expose their ideas and innovations. To talk more about innovation and to set the stage for our panelists, I'm pleased to pass the baton to my friend and the managing director of XRC Labs, Pathr. Pathr?
Thanks, Steve, and we really appreciate the great efforts of NACDS and their members. You know, in a story you may all know well, before the Great Depression, another very tumultuous time, there were two cereal companies going head to head, Kellogg and Post. When the Depression actually hit, Post logically reined in expenses and cut back on advertising. But Kellogg doubled its ad budget and moved aggressively into a new medium, radio advertising, and heavily pushed its new cereal, Rice Krispies. Profits at Kellogg's rose 30% and quickly became the dominant player in the cereal category ever since. So today, we feel like we're really in an unprecedented but equally disruptive time. How disruptive? Well, how about the idea that Major League Baseball is seriously considering implementing an electronic strike zone and holding all their games in Arizona? The purists of the baseball community have resisted demands for this technology, which was developed, nearly 20 years ago, and it resisted it even though it would remove subjectivity from the game. Until last Monday, they had made it clear that maintaining a tradition that had not changed in over 100 years was more important than fairness and objectivity. COVID and the need for social distance now between the umpire and the catcher and the batter changed all that. So if Major League Baseball wants to have a baseball season this year, they have to adapt. Steve and I and our startups are here today to discuss how Corona will shake up not just baseball, but any time-honored tradition. Old traditions die hard. Corona is going to speed that up. We're going to share with you two startups today that can make a difference immediately, like tomorrow, in this COVID pandemic. One focuses on store operations and what we call building a COVID compliance code for the stores that are open. And the other focuses on merchandising operations, ensuring that the many great products that your vendors are producing get to the shelves quickly enough to satisfy customer demand. You've often heard it said that necessity is the mother of invention. But today, we are here today to call out that necessity is the mother and father of innovation, not just invention. With that, I pass the mic back to Hallie.
Thank you, Pano. I'd now like to introduce George Shaw, co-founder and CEO of Pathr. George built his expertise at the MIT Media Lab, where he worked with Bank of America and Best Buy to lead Retail Next's world-class R&D team. George continued to break new ground in leveraging video for person tracking and behavioral analysis as head of data science at Second Spectrum. George then joined Intel as principal engineer before launching Pathr in 2019. George, without further delay, tell us about Pathr.
Hi, I'm George, founder and CEO of Pathr. Pathr is a spatial intelligence platform. That means we use AI to understand how people move through physical spaces. We do that with existing infrastructure. We don't deploy any new hardware. And what we do is we connect that understanding of people moving through physical spaces to the business cases that the operators of those spaces care about. An example would be how staff and customers interact in a brick and mortar retail store, or how customers flow through a shopping center. Our platform has broad capabilities, but what I want to talk about today is a particular problem that's been brought to light due to the recent health crisis, and that's social distancing. A lot of retailers now, especially the ones that are currently open, are thinking a lot about social distancing and how they can provide a safe environment for their customers and staff, maintaining suitable social distance between those people. What many folks are doing is looking to fire codes for guidance. So if you've got a 15,000 square foot Walgreens, for example, fire code says that you need about 30 square feet per person, and that'll say that you can allow 500 people into that store. And then what retailers are doing is saying, well, let's take that fire code and cut it in half because we want to allow for more social distance. So I can probably allow 250 people into my 15,000 square foot store. Well, that's taking a metric, the fire code, that wasn't designed to reflect anything about social distance, and then arbitrarily just cutting it in half. So there's no real rigor or principle to how that number is derived, and there's downsides to getting it wrong. If you err on the side of too high, You're not allowing enough social distance. You have too many people in the physical space, and you're providing an unsafe environment. But if you're on the side of too low, you haven't allowed enough customers into your store. You're limiting the amount of customer traffic that you have, and of course that limits sales artificially. So what we want is to find a way to better deduce the number of people that can fit into a space safely. So here we're seeing simulated shoppers moving through a grocery store. This is based on statistical models that we've built, understanding how people flow through physical spaces. We're also using statistics about infection rates that we've gotten from the CDC to model certain of these shoppers being infected. And then we can look at contacts and see which contacts are unsafe between these shoppers. Where was social distance too low? And which of these are unsafe contacts, and what's the potential for disease transmission in that environment? This all lets us deduce a social distance score. The social distance score is dependent on the amount of customer traffic. So you can see to the left there that it's actually a curve. And for a particular amount of traffic, you get a particular score. There we had 3.86. But if we allow less traffic into the space, we'll occupy a different place on that curve. And here we see our social distance score has gone up to 7.93, which is a good score. We have 0 unsafe contacts and 0 probability of transmission with fewer occupants in the space. So we're using AI to better understand how many people can safely occupy a space, given how they flow through that space, where the bottlenecks are, where the actual flows and open spaces are. So how do we do this? We start by taking just a floor plan. We can use that floor plan to simulate the physical environment and to let our AI-based shoppers move through that space in order to give us a first cut at a social distance score. We can allow different numbers of shoppers to move through that space so that we can derive that entire curve and understand how that social distance score changes given different numbers of people. The next thing we do is to layer in some video where we can do tracking using the video and then use that location derived from the tracking in order to improve that social distance score. It's like error bars on many statistics. The error bars shrink the more video you add to that and the more data that you're able to provide. We like to start with about a week of video if possible. We can go up to a month of video and even more. And then the next thing we might do is to deploy the technology live on the ground in the store so that we can be collecting these analytics in real time and also produce alerts and collect a much larger volume of video. Again, we can start with just a floor plan, and that lets us turn around a social distance score automatically and very, very quickly. Again, I'm George. I'm the CEO of Pathr. I'd be enthusiastic to talk to you about the ways that we could collaborate in order to make your environment safer for staff and customers. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, George at Pathr.ai, or visit one of our websites, Pathr.ai or socialdistance.ai. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Again, I'd like to encourage listeners to submit questions through the Zoom Q&A function. We'll answer them at the end of the session. Next, we have Evan Silver, founder and CEO of Simplista. Evan began his career at Oracle, where he excelled as a top consultant. He then went on to found his own successful firm, helping Fortune 100 clients deliver operational effectiveness through advanced analytics and business process automation. Evan has more than 20 years of experience delivering technology services. He developed Simplista to grow revenue for retailers and their suppliers by fixing a fundamental flaw in every retailer's supply chain. Evan, without further ado, I hand the mic to you.
Thanks, Hallie. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me and you can see the screen.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Evan Silver, and I'm the founder and CEO of Simplista. Simplista automates item onboarding, so retailers get the accurate and complete item data they need to get products to shelf in days, not weeks or months. First, on a personal note, I hope everyone and their families are well and safe in these difficult times. I also want to salute you all, as in addition to our first responders and physicians, you are our heroes during this pandemic. I believe grocers and chain drugstores have a real opportunity to provide value to their customers during this pandemic and beyond, both online and in their stores. So with that, let's jump in. Grocers and chain drugstores are seeing a steep incline in demand due to COVID-19. There are two problems which have become apparent during this crisis. First, retailers don't have enough items listed online to meet current demand. And second, because of product shortages in certain categories, retailers have needed to onboard new suppliers, as well as retailers are working with their suppliers to rationalize their SKUs. The onboarding processes that you have in place today are not enabling you to ramp up fast enough. And as we all know, for any item to be sold online or in a store, the item data needs to be accurate and complete, which it isn't in most cases. To give you a bit more context to understand the magnitude of this problem, item onboarding is the inception of the entire supply chain, a process that impacts every aspect downstream, including and perhaps most importantly, the customer experience. Now, item onboarding is anything but basic. I'll give you an example. A bottle of ketchup requires hundreds of data attributes moving from the supplier into 7 different divisions of a given retailer with approximately 30 human touch points. I want you just to think about that for a moment. Even in good times, large retailers are onboarding several 100,000 new products per year to their stores and many millions to their digital platforms. So you can imagine the blocking and tackling that goes on. Your current listing process is slow, it's overly complicated, and it requires too many human touch points, and it's costing you hundreds and in missed revenue opportunities. COVID-19 has only amplified the problem. The demand and revenue opportunities are there, but you need help to actualize these and to better serve your customers in their time of need. So I'm going to change gears and talk about Simplista. We developed Simplista to automate this antiquated process and give you back the time and revenue that you've been losing. We have done this successfully for Canada's largest grocer and chain drugstore. Our cloud platform provides the following. We have real-time connectivity to data sources, including GS1. In fact, our data model is GS1 compliant, and we are partners. We have pre-built business rules to ensure 100% data accuracy. Let me give you a few examples. We check for valid GTINs. UPCs are correct. Does the PLU have a valid description? We check case volumes if it's reasonable. We look at the tie-in tier values if they are reasonable to the actual pallet being shipped. Getting back to the actual platform, we've got pre-built workflows. We've got flexibility in the platform to easily manage attribute explosion. We have APIs that in real time connect into your backend ERPs and PIMs. We have AI to ensure images correspond to the actual descriptions. Every time we give a demo, so much conversation happens just in that feature alone. And we have vendor scorecarding. In response to COVID-19, we have developed a solution designed to help you meet your surge in demand, both in your stores and online. Item onboarding as a service is a low-cost, emergency version of our original technology. In recognition of its ability, Accenture has added us to their list of COVID-19 solutions. Most importantly, we totally acknowledge that business continuity is a priority. And that is why our solution is totally inobtrusive. And what I mean by that is we are not fully integrating into your backend IT systems. So let me explain how it works. You send us your vendor and item file. We go out and we source that data. We've got data connectivity into a bunch of data pools. We open up our vendor portal to your vendors. We validate your specifications. We're using our internal rules. If you want us to incorporate your specific rules, our platform can do this. And then we return a clean file that is easily imported into your item master systems and processed automatically. Some immediate benefits of the service. So to be clear, there is no software installation, no licensing contracts, no minimal commitments. It's pay as you go, SKU by SKU, based on our matches. So what this means to you There's no additional headcount, no IT support other than the existing file import process that you have in place today. No changes required to your existing systems, and you'll have items available to sell in days and not weeks. From a timing perspective, we can give you the data that you need in 1 week after you agree to use our service. My call to action today is the following. I'd welcome the opportunity to set up a demo of the platform. 1 week later, we can actually commercialize it and then be that extra set of arms to help you manage the spike in demand. Thank you for listening, and please take care.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, George. That was great. I'd like to, at this point, move into the Q&A session. We had some good questions from the audience. I'd like to lead with one for you, George. Please discuss the time to deploy the tech and share how you make this real time for stores to limit occupancy and manage bottlenecks as they are occurring.
Sure. Yeah. So the time to deploy the tech is very variable. We can get up and running extremely quickly with just a floor plan. We can take steps forward by taking in some historical video. That's also happens very quickly, can be measured in hours, not days. And then deploying live, given current environment, is a little bit more challenging, but typically that's also a very easy deployment. So we're able to get the tech in place, set up and operating live, again, and measured in hours, not days.
Okay, thanks. Another one for you, George. How much video do you need to process for COVID compliance?
So sort of the same answer. We can work with a very small amount of video. That'll make the statistical models a little bit more powerful. We can work with no video, of course. Small amount of video makes those models more powerful. And then up to a week of video is extremely valuable because that gives you a view of different days and how traffic flows through the space on different days of the week. When you go up to a month, now you have more samples of each day of the week, so you have a better idea of how traffic works on Saturdays, for example. And then beyond that, you get into live collection where you have a analytics framework that's updated sort of continuously and becomes even more powerful. So I think the short answer is any amount of video is great.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And what do you need for real-time tracking? How do you notify us when we're crossing the threshold?
So we work with notification systems that already exist. So if a retailer's already got some way that they're communicating with staff on the sales floor, we'll tie into that. We can also work through SMS or Slack via integrations. We don't produce notification devices or anything like that, but we work with existing technologies. So we'll work with whatever makes the most sense for a given retailer.
How quickly can you turn around a score based on my file submission?
We can produce a simple score almost instantly with a floor plan. And then with a small amount of video, we can make that score better. Basically, if you look at statistics, there are typically error bars around the statistics. Those error bars shrink the more video we get. So we can turn around a score with larger error bars nearly instantly.
Okay, thank you. Evan, a few for you here. Does our item file need to be a certain format?
No. You give us we can take item files in Excel, CSV. We sort of flexible in that respect. Just yeah, I mean, in most times it's Excel.
Okay, thank you. Evan, another one. What kinds of products and product ranges can you handle?
So we go right across every category. So at Canada's grocer, we've done 750 I guess categories. So it really doesn't matter. An item is an item for Simplista. We take that item, we can, it's an image, it's a text. It really, our system can handle virtually any kind of item. Simplista is sitting up in the cloud, it's sitting up on Azure. We can ingest two-dimensional images, three-dimensional images, anything that retailer needs attached to that item. Simplista can absorb.
Thank you. George, I have two for you. So Pathr uses existing hardware, cameras only, or installs its own?
Yeah, existing hardware, cameras only, or if there's some other tracking technology in place, we can work with that. But typically, cameras only. We don't install any hardware at all.
Thank you. Another one, does Pathr work in 3 dimensions to understand what people touch? It's a great question.
That's a great question, and we actually don't. So we very consciously turn all of the data that we collect into just moving dots on a floor plan. They're just location in 2 dimensions, and that's to protect people's privacy. So there's no PII whatsoever in the system. So everybody becomes just an anonymous dot on the floor plan. But that also means that we're not recognizing gestures like reaching out and touching shelves.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's get to another one for Evan. Can you tell us a bit about your image processing, please?
So within Simplista, we can look at an image, we can scan an image, we can tell if that image and the item description are a match. So we essentially parsing the entire image, we're parsing our description, and we can say, hey, is this a match or is this not a match? And we actually then pass it back to the category person or whoever the person is looking at it and saying, we don't think it's a good idea to, as an example, match a mango image to a lime description, but you can make that final call. We can also literally strip away all the ingredients and nutrients from that image. We pass that into a table, and then you can do some interesting stuff with that. So it's a really powerful piece of technology, which we have.
And how many SKUs can you handle per week?
Oh, so, I'm just looking at some of our statistics. So essentially I guess throughput for us is not the issue. We can really crank up throughput. We're doing 100 records per second, and we can always turn that dial to the right. So throughput really is not a problem.
Mm-hmm. George, Steve asked a great question yesterday. Can you identify super shoppers or those who are shopping for Instacart, et cetera, and then do analytics specifying about them? Specifically about them.
Yes, we can. So one of the things that our platform does really well is to identify different shopping behaviors. And so one of those shopping behaviors that we can identify is super shopping behavior. You're there shopping for Instacart or some delivery service. So we can identify those super shoppers that way, or if they're wearing some kind of uniform or some kind of visual identifier, we're able to use that as well to do that identification. And then doing analytics about them specifically becomes much easier because we've separated them from the other shoppers. And so we can understand their path through a store. We can understand if they're taking the optimal route, how long they're taking, so on and so forth.
Well, thank you both. And thank you, Steve and NACDS, for your valued partnership. Don't want to keep everyone. I know time is of the essence. Thank you, George and Evan, to all of our listeners today. Please feel free to connect with us directly with any follow-up questions to learn more about either of these solutions or to discuss corporate partnerships with XRC Labs. Thank you.